Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. So this podcast is and YouTube channel is all about discussing AI and the influence of it. So today's very special guest is none other than Alistair Burton. Mr. Alistair is not only the executive technology leader, but also a thought leader for the impact of AI. So I'm very excited about this conversation. He also hosts the amazing podcast called Life Lessons. So before we begin, thank you so much again for being here. And can you give us a little bit of introduction to yourself, please?
Absolutely. And I'm thrilled to be here. This is a fascinating subject. And as you mentioned, from a career perspective, I've always been involved in technology and generally come through the projects and programs route. So I've been involved in different sectors, different industries, implementing the technology solutions. But quite recently, I've become more and more interested in AI. And I possibly wouldn't put myself in a thought leader bracket, but I'm really, really curious into how we would implement it in a work environment and the risks, pitfalls, and benefits of doing it. And I think my natural curiosity also makes me think about what role does it have to play in society and how might it change who we are in society. And I'm not sure I've got the answers to all these things, but I really like to be aware of them because that helps me perhaps make the right decisions and have the right discussions with people about it.
Exactly, exactly. That is awesome. So all these topics and implications I'm so into these days, and I got to listen to the very first episode of your podcast, Life Lessons, and it was amazing to hear because there were a lot of great topics to be touched upon. So, for example, you mentioned that 3 years from now, the world will be a whole lot different, even compared to right now. And we need to really educate people a little more so that they are more better equipped and we're aware of the changes. And in terms of professions also, for example, graphic designers, marketing experts, they'll be doing somewhat different things. So this whole concept and definitions are changing and being reshaped. So would you have a say about this disruptive time along with the development AI?
Yeah, the world's undoubtedly going to be different in 3 years' time. I'm sure of it, especially in certain knowledge professions and creative professions. What I can't predict is, does it mean people won't be working anymore? I think the answer is not, that's not going to be the case. But I think AI is going to be embedded in these professions. So if you're entering university now and you want to pursue a career in creative industries in 3 years' time, it's critical that you use and develop a deep knowledge of the AI tools that would be there, because undoubtedly you're going to use them. And I think for a lot of creativity, initially humans will be working with AI machines to create the output, which will make them more efficient. AI is fantastic for ideation. We might find, better ideas quicker, faster time to market for these things, removing some of the drudgery of that work and allowing the humans to really focus on where the creative value add is. So that's where I think we'll go initially. The concern I always have at the back of my mind is, for lower value creative work, will we eventually see machines do all of that? And that's a concern that might be the case.
Okay. I think I might agree with you in that a lot of people will still be doing a lot of things. I mean, in terms of work, but um, although AI is boosting our productivity from how I see it, it sometimes feels like, for example, hindering my thinking processes by, it's directing me to be headed to be somewhere by giving me information according to its own convenience based on how it's working and all. So you were posting on LinkedIn about one of the articles regarding the bias, which might be a huge concern in regard to AI. So would you have, it will be one aspect of the impact of AI, but would you have something to share regarding it, and how is it really
different from all the other, paradigm shifts compared to before. You mentioned about, and then I have another question regarding creativity, but I'll just let you say for now.
Yeah, and it's really interesting you mentioned that, because at the moment with AI, there's so many questions and we don't necessarily have the answers. But by asking the questions, we can be aware of the pitfalls and what's happening within the AI. Because to a lot of people, and me included, I'm not super technical. What goes on inside these generative AI engines is largely a black box. But understanding that bias can occur and having even a rudimentary understanding of how that bias is coming about is really useful, because as we start to implement AI in our businesses and in our organizations, we need to make sure that we're not overtaken by the what it could offer us and all of the benefits without thinking about some of the risks that exist. And as I understand it, what AI does based on the data sets it's been trained on, and a lot of these open AI engines have been trained on the internet, is it takes the data that already exists and it reflects that back to us. And humans being humans, and the history we've gone through and the place we've ended up in society today, we are a biased society. And the information out there on the internet reflects those biases. So what AI does is it reflects that back to us. And because AI gives you faster results, it really magnifies the bias and it delivers that bias at scale. And there's been a number of studies done by universities that have seen how if you ask the AI engine or Mid-Journey, if you're creating pictures, to give you a particular answer, you say, paint me pictures of chief executive officers, and it will create a lot of images. Paint me pictures of housekeepers, it will create a lot of images. Paint me pictures of criminals, it will create a lot of images. What these studies found is the CEOs, by and large, tended to be 50-year-old white males. Housekeepers tended to be female, possibly Asian or Hispanic. Terrorists tended to be Arabic with beards. So the algorithms are reflecting back the biases. And that's dangerous for a few reasons. One, if you implement it in your business, you might end up making the wrong decisions, and those biases would be against your values. If you're using them in an educational perspective, you're not going to get fair and unbiased results. And if these algorithms find their ways into entertainment, which they undoubtedly will, and our children become using them, they will see a reflection of a world that is a biased world. So perhaps perpetuates it in the future. So there's the societal problem associated with that. And I don't know how to remove that bias from within the technology, but there's definitely things that we can do to protect ourselves from the bias. If we were implementing technology in our organization, for example, and today we all know how important cybersecurity is, and we'll quite often employ third parties to do penetration testing of our systems to make sure it's robust. Very, very rapidly, there'll be a bias testing industry where we'll be able to contract with third parties and say, come and look at our system, look at the data it's been trained on, look at the outputs you're getting, and give me some assurance that it isn't perpetuating bias. And then come and do it periodically, because the machines learn and change their opinions as they go. So there's things you can do like that. And, also even the makeup of your team when you're working with AI is really, really important. Because when AI was originally developed in Silicon Valley, the overwhelming profile of the developers were young white men. And as a consequence, they, not through any malice, but they view the world through a particular lens. So they test the software in a particular way and they look for particular outcomes, and they go, yeah, that kind of works the way I would expect it to do because it reflects my vision of the world. By diversifying your team and making sure you've got fair representation, you're going to improve the quality of the testing that you're doing when you're developing those things. But for a lot of us, we're not going to develop it, we're going to use it. So it's really important to have the assurance around how these decisions are made.
Sure. And it involves a lot of complicated ethics related discussions, right? So I think it's getting more and more important for companies to be ethical in terms of this because of, this relevant risks that AI may contain. Like, for example, as you mentioned, we can have a team and all that stuff. But at a personal level, I really think that it is important for us to be aware and to grow our own wisdom. So I'm from a humanities background, so I'm all into humanity also. So not only we are interested in, watching and involving in the evolvement of AI, we also like to think that we will be our life will be better somehow. We want to be wiser and, just better in and as a person too. And I think for that to happen, we should have more and more discussions in this realm. So not only we're using AI as a convenient tool, we have to also be very cautious about, where it's heading me to. Like, it gives me some sort of information, and not only we're following and utilizing that, we also need to be wise enough to make a good decision making in terms of the information and knowledge. So ethics surrounding it is very complicated, as it was mentioned in one of your podcast episodes, but I want to touch a little bit upon investing in humanity too. So in the first episode of your podcast, it was a very interesting topic. It was brought up whether we still would want to invest in humanity. For example, if we are going to a concert, and for example, if we are buying a piece of artwork, I personally still prefer, buy paintings by humans, but of course there are very attractive other artworks by AI, and I'm enjoying that, pieces too. So what would you have questions on your mind regarding the creativity in the future?
Yeah, that was a great conversation with a guy called Steve Brophy, who is an artist as well as being an educator. And in that conversation, he said, I want the real thing, and I'll pay for it. And I think people will always want to pay for the real thing. They'll want to see something that's artisan, that's handcrafted, that's a handwritten song. It's human, it's painted by a human. But the top 1% globally earns around $34,000. What that tells me is 99% earn less than that. So the top 1% globally have enough money in their pocket to make those kinds of discerning decisions. But it seems to me that the vast majority of the world don't have the luxury to pay extra for something that's human created. And I think by virtue of that, they'll be forced to accept AI created output. And what that does to the world, what that does to the small remnant of human creators, how it creates and magnifies the divisions that might exist in society, I'm not sure, and that, I have some concerns around that, and I tend to possibly err on the more negative side of the future than the positive. I hope for positivity, but I kind of look for the negativity so that I'm aware of it. So I do think people will always pay for human created output, but I don't think they're going to be the vast majority, because I don't think the vast majority have the choice.
Mm-hmm. So it'll be rather in the luxurious category is what you're anticipating?
I think so, yeah.
Very interesting. Okay, something to think about further. Great food for thought. So my next question actually is about, how to really thrive in this age of AI as a strategic leader. So would you even though I'm throwing at you these questions, would you also have some more questions that you have for yourself on your mind in this new age? I would like to hear what questions you're throwing, by watching to the future.
And it's constantly evolving, and every day I ask myself different questions. What should we do here? what would we do? Even back to the question we were talking about there around, what we'll pay for as a luxury item and what we won't. We have situations unfolding right now. We have the Hollywood writers' strike, and a large portion of that strike is down to AI created content and how that might affect, the writing profession. But that's going to bring actors in as well, because they're thinking about, well, how's that going to affect us? And again, back to the fact that the bulk of the world don't have enough spare income to really be discerning in how they spend it. They would accept, I am sure, in the future, even begrudgingly, AI created content. And because AI created content then gets produced and it gets accepted and it gets used, does that change who we are? It's those kind of questions. If we start consuming more and more AI created content, does it change who we are? As we start to interact more and more with machines, does it change who we are? We've all probably got now technology in the home, whether it be Apple HomePod, Google, Alexa, Siri. And I often ask myself an interesting question with that. When I talk to her, I always say please and thank you. But when the kids talk to her, they don't. So I know she's a machine, but I feel that it's part of my humanity to maintain manners. The kids know that she's a machine. She's not even a she, but it's a machine. But they choose to treat it differently. And what does that mean for when they grow up to be adults? If they view technology as lesser and they don't see the need to have manners, is that a bad thing? Or does it change who they are as humans? And will that rub off and will that change who they are? And it's things like that worry me. It's the way we interact with people is what makes us human. I don't want to lose that. And I don't know how our interaction with artificial intelligence will affect that.
A very, very good point. Thank you so much for sharing.
It's things like this that keep us awake at night.
I mean, yes. This interaction part is really, I think, so very important. I think the whole generation is, I feel already the generation different than me, they are a whole different kind. They're a different humankind. We're same in that we're humans, but they are very different in terms of thinking process and how to really interact and engage with other human beings and machines and all that. And like if they are to ever, melt down this separation between humans and machines, and they are suddenly like treating other people in a very bad manner, for example, or a better manner, that might be something unexpected for me, who used to be not using machines, or I grew up without any interaction with machine. So this is a very, very good, I think, open question everybody might want to think through for themselves. And also in regard to creativity, I think, so the other day at a conference I was mentioning to be a premium group as a human being. So we need to always be in the premium group because we're human beings. I always think efficiency is good, but inefficiency is always needed because we're humans. We don't always need to be or want to be efficient like machines. So that, in my mind, is something that can be embraced as a premium group, but other people might think differently in terms of this creativity topic. So I really, really so enjoyed this conversation today. Would you have something left on your mind before you leave, or any last closing comments?
What you just said there is beautiful. The fact that we are a premium group, and that is what makes us human. If you think about your favorite painting or your favorite song, it doesn't matter what it is, and you think about the human that created that and the pain that they were going through, and the instability and the anxiety or the triumph or the joy, and the raw human emotions that caused them to create that thing, that piece of artwork. There's a whole story behind that. And it's through that humanity that beautiful outcome was created. Artificial intelligence can't do that because it can't think and be anxious or be triumphant. It will create something based on a set of algorithms, based on information and data it's learned from in the past, and it will recycle. So there's a separate question going: is it anything AI produces ever original, or is it just the same ingredients put together in a slightly different way? So it's always going to be different. So your label of us as a premium group is something I really like, and I'm going to spend a lot of time thinking about that, because we are distinctly different. And I think the final thing I would say is, undoubtedly, we will never stop the AI train. It's coming. We're going to have to use it. You're going to want to use it because it is going to make life easier and give you more productivity. But it's very, very early in the journey. So my view to everyone would be, keep your eyes wide open and start to consider the impacts. When social media came out, we probably didn't understand what it was going to do to us in terms of divisive behaviors, arguing online, body image problems, filters, the amount of time we'd spend on the screens, bullying of children. You know, all of that has happened. But now let's try and learn from that and go, well, with the advent of artificial intelligence and the accelerated rate of development, let's not get caught out the way we were caught out with social media. So let's really think about it. And do what, you know, individually, be conscious and make good decisions and think about what you're doing. And if you have the power to influence, think about how we could make the right corporate decisions. And, you know, from a governmental perspective, think about how we can influence regulation. Because if we don't take a guiding hand around it, it will run out of control, and people will benefit. But whether everyone benefits the way we think we should in a utopian, technology-driven future, I do not know. Hopefully there's something in the middle. Protopian, I think, the middle between dystopian and utopian.
Got you. Okay. I enjoyed this talk so much. Thank you so much again for being here, and I wish you all the best. And I really appreciate the great points that you made through the discussion.
No, thank you.
Again.
Brilliant questions, fascinating subject, and I'll be watching with interest how you continue this conversation with other people.
Absolutely. Thank you again. Bye-bye.
Thank you.